What's up, Sushi Squad? We back in this more Trove, and today we're going to be talking about the new class abilities. These are new modified abilities that we did end up talking about and addressing in the last Trove live stream, but I figured that we would kind of have a more concise video just focusing on the abilities themselves. Okay, go away. We're on PTS, so it doesn't matter. Focusing on the effects specifically, so that we aren't kind of experimenting with them, because the live stream was more me trying them for the first time, getting hype about them, seeing what was going on with them. And now that I actually have a little bit more experience with the abilities, I just kind of want to share with you guys the ramifications of what they could potentially end up doing for the game, in terms of how some of them are game-changing abilities. Now, that said, I want to let you guys know that basically what's going on is we've got the Lunar Lancer update, which more than likely is going to end up coming to PC, let's say within a month, just because the Bard update didn't end up doing something similar, where it was on the test server and then the Bard class came within a month, if I'm not mistaken. But all of the modified abilities that we're going to be talking about today, these are clearly part of a much grander update that is eventually coming to Trove, because it's actually the test server has removed the previous modified abilities in favor of these new modified abilities that we can experiment with. So we'll get into those in a moment, but before we do, I just gotta let you guys know, if you're new to Trove, you can use that sign up link down in the description, and then anything you end up buying out of the cash shop, I make a percentage of that sale. It's an awesome way you can end up supporting me by just playing the game and buying stuff anyways. I mean, even though pretty much the entire game is just packs of costumes and stuff now, which frankly speaking is fine. It's not awful. So first ability is going to be the Pirate Captain. So this is Avast Ye. As of right now, all of these abilities are gotten with rings that are on the test server, but when they're in the full game, on the live server, who knows where we'll obtain them. Maybe we'll even have some sort of quest and these will be subclass abilities. I don't know, but basically what this does is makes it so that your basic attack cause your minions to attack your target, as well as applying a debuff increasing damage done to it. Can end up being a game changer for Pirate Captain, frankly speaking, and end up making him god tier, just because Pirate Captain is already a really powerful character that a lot of people kind of underestimate, most of all just because the build-up time, right? You got to basically use all your abilities and then spam pots so you can double your ult down on the ground and cause lots and lots of damage. But one of the biggest issues with the Pirate Captain is that all of your minions are auto-aiming on whatever target they feel like, which can end up being a bit of a problem if you go into a dungeon, throw down your ultimate, and it starts attacking an enemy across the screen or something that can't end up hurting. I mean, obviously, there's still going to end up being issues with the class in general, okay? There's no question about that. Like, say there's a whole mob of enemies here and we have our little turret down and then we start attacking the enemies. Well, our turret's still only going to end up hitting the enemies that are on the outer circle rather than the boss that might end up being on the complete opposite side of all of them, right? But at the least, the turret will be aiming towards the enemies and it is going to end up applying that debuff. So that can end up being really, really good. Vanguard, this is a bit of a weird one. I don't know if I like it. Sound off in comments if you guys do. But basically what this does is it makes it so that Fired Up and Force Flash, which is your #1 ability in both melee and ranged mode, will now apply to 2 nearby allies when used. Which basically means that in ranged mode, your #1 ability gives you an attack speed buff. So that can be pretty cracked if you're there specifically to give somebody else damage. And your #1 ability gives you the movement speed, which again can end up being really, really nice just because of how it can apply to other people if you're playing in co-op. But generally speaking, at the end game, you don't really want to try to cast your ability with somebody nearby. It just kind of seems like it's going to be happenstance, like you're just going to happen to have somebody nearby that is going to end up benefiting from the buff rather than doing it deliberately, at least when you get to the mid to the end game. As for early game, frankly speaking, I think it's a really cool ability, but I do not think that it's a game changer for the class itself. Try again. So let's move on to the Ice Sage. Ice Sage, actually, we didn't get any Ice Sage abilities the last time Ice Sage was here. Or the last time the modified abilities were here, I should say. But now we've actually got 2 of them. So first is going to be nice ice baby, which the big chill summons an ice crash on your location, and this ice crash changes the ground around you to ice. So that's going to end up being our number 1 ability, is going to end up casting. That big thing comes down from the ground, and basically the ground itself is going to end up being turned to ice, and it is going to end up having ice physics. You are going to slip and slide all over the place. I frankly don't know what the point is of this ability other than the secondary ability, which we're going to end up talking about. I think that this is kind of dumb. Ice physics are one of the worst things that Trove could possibly have. Obviously, Ice Sage doesn't slip around or anything like that, but you know, enemies aren't going to end up slipping around too badly either, and frankly speaking, it doesn't really matter. Other players are going to slip around, so this could end up being really annoying, especially if you end up just spamming it all over the place, because you could cover a whole arena in ice and then everyone would just be pissed. But the other ability, now this is where it makes me wonder if this is planned, and if swapping your, I mean, I know that we already technically have the subclass abilities. I know I just keep calling these modified abilities subclass abilities, but I'm talking about them in the more traditional sense of this is a subclass, where it's like, oh, I become some type of a weird Draco demon thing, and that's how I end up getting this new ability with my Draco babies or something. I don't know. Just work with me here, okay? But anyways, my point is, I wonder if these new modified abilities you'll be able to swap very quickly, just because this other ability, as cold as ice, while on ice, the Ice Sage gains additional crit hit chance and critical damage, which makes me wonder if you do this and then you swap rings, you do actually see the benefit, which is actually substantial. You get like 500%, if not a little bit more, of crit damage, and then over 50% towards your crit hit, which is actually insane. But it doesn't seem to last very long. But my point is, I wonder whether or not, like, are we going to end up seeing, you know, is it supposed to be that I can cast the ability and swap myself, or is it literally something to do with I would be using this to help other people? You know what I mean? So I don't know where it stands right now. I don't know if you can end up getting the benefit of both of these. Well, that's going to throw Ice Sage even further up the top of the food chain than we already have. Now, unfortunately, if memory serves, yeah, you can't turn dungeon blocks to ice. So maybe a bit of an oversight from the devs, because frankly speaking, not being able to turn dungeon blocks to ice means that this ability does become pretty useless in terms of just dungeon farming. So I don't know. I mean, we'll have to wait and see. Boomeranger. Now, this is a weird one and a little bit lackluster. Boomerman's not time to rejoice yet, guys. Okay, unfortunately, still don't have a Boomeranger rework, and this ability is pretty lackluster, where it makes it the urn triggers an additional effect. So the urn is your ultimate ability. It should clarify, or at least say the mysterious urn. Basically, it's going to be completely random, but you'll throw it down and you can have twice the effects. So that was actually twice the bombs, which means enemies would get knocked back like crazy. That was food as well as the stamina regen. So that was healing and stamina. You can get twice as many chickens to end up spawning, which is kind of nice. But as you see, it's very random. It's very inconsistent. So kind of bad. It doesn't really do anything for the character, unfortunately. However, the last modified abilities we ended up seeing was not bad, where it ended up specifically working with the Boomeranger's bow ability. Now the Tomb Raiser's ability is next, and this one, ooh, I'm excited about this one when it goes to the live server, because this could potentially be a game changer. Tomb Raiser already is a very, very heavy hitter. Okay, the problem with the Tomb Raiser is, most of all, that it takes a lot of time before you have your abilities ready. So you basically have to summon a whole set of your bone tirage little skeletal babies, and then you gotta summon them all a second time so they have purple health bar, and then you turn them all into your ultimate ability. It steals the purple health bar so that your ultimate is super duper strong, and then you summon more skeletal babies so that they all have purple health bar, and you have your ultimate ability with purple health bar as well. That is the pinnacle of getting the strengths with the Tomb Raiser. It just takes a really long time to do so. However, what this modified ability does is using Bone Tirage has a chance to summon a larger skeletal, and when this large skeletal dies, it will spawn a little skeletal, which doesn't really matter. But the point is that if we get lucky enough to end up actually summoning another one of these guys, they seem to be able to go over the cap of 6 minions. I don't know the exact number that you can end up getting with them. Maybe it was fixed. Maybe it was hot fixed. But point is, if I can ever end up summoning one of these guys, they do a little bit more damage, and the fact that you can get all of your minions to end up being these big boys, these thick children, let's call them, literally tells me that basically what I explained about Tomb Raiser's max damage stays the exact same, save for the fact that you're trying to get big chunky children to end up fighting alongside you instead of having maximum of your 6 minions. So there's one right there, and my god, he's a big boy. Even when you use your ultimate ability, he is a big boy, son. Like, my god. And they actually do pretty decent damage. So this could end up being a game changer for Tomb Raiser, just in the fact that it's going to make you way stronger, right? So keep that in mind. Then there's the Lunar Lancer ability, which this works with the reworked ability of the class, and it's kind of lame. We won't do it today just because it's literally pointless. The ability is, when in lunar form, basic attacks have a chance to spawn meteors from the sky. Now, embarrassingly so, I was testing this out on the stream. I'd kill the enemies before the meteor even hit the ground, so I cannot give you guys any feedback to this ability other than it sucks. Maybe it's a really good ability if you're mid to early game, but for somebody that's actually doing super mega damage, and especially after the Lancer's rework and your lunar mode just doing mega damage, the meteors are useless. You know, I'd like to see maybe it would do an explosion effect or something rather than having to wait for the meteor to come down. Obviously, it'll be helpful towards bosses because it's just going to be additional damage. But bosses in general, like Leviathans and, you know, delve bosses and stuff, aren't really going to see the full benefit of that just because you're not going to be in lunacy mode that much while fighting them. So it's, I don't know. I personally don't really like that ability. Dino Tamer's got another ability as well, which I don't like this one either. But Dino Buddy now spawns 2 minions instead of 1. So if you don't already know, the Dino Tamer can actually spawn a total of 3 minions. Count them, 3. Mario, and Luigi Mario. That's a weird reference that I've done on the channel for years from the Mario movie, my favorite movie of all time, and I'm not even, no cap. So there we go. We got 2 babies. Unfortunately, devs don't seem to realize that unless they buff these children, these cute little pig and duck, I'm not going to waste my time summoning them. You want to know why? Because I'm going to lose them because I'm a speed farming character. I'm going to be long gone before they even damage an enemy. And frankly speaking, whatever I'm fighting is already going to be dead before my babies end up getting their chance to attack anyways, because the Dino Tamer's minions suck. Frankly speaking, they should change it so that it just summons his cap. It summons all 3 minions at once. And rather than the minions being complete random, it should just summon 1 of each. So the bird, the pig, let's say, whatever, and then the raptor guy. It should summon all 3 of them at once, and then maybe we'll talk. But until then, I don't care. Fae Trickster actually gets a decent ability, though this is probably the lamest ability ever. So with the Fae Trickster, if you didn't know, the Fae Trickster has this mechanic where if you don't take damage for 2 seconds, you end up gaining a damage buff. So that's kind of the whole point of the character, is you're trying to teleport around and avoid taking damage, right? The modified ability makes it so that Ego Blast, which is the ability I've just explained, now allows you to take 2 hits within 2 seconds rather than just 1. So basically, you'll lose the damage buff if you get hit twice within 2 seconds rather than once and then you lose the damage buff. It's not a bad ability, like I said, it's just so lackluster, it's just so unimpressive compared to the other characters that I just feel like it's pointless. Like, why isn't that, like, that kind of feels like a class gem ability or something, like it just, whatever. And now, we've got the Gunslinger ability, which pisses me off. Like, the thing about these modified abilities and the thing about Trove in general, so Gunslinger has pretty much always been the strongest character in the game, and only recently a lot of the era characters have started to compete with the Gunslinger. Gunslinger is kind of the standard in terms of how much damage you want to be able to output with the other classes. So all of the reworks have slowly brought all the other classes up to it, with only a few exceptions actually beating Gunslinger. Like, I think Ice Sage does now, Chloromancer is definitely top. But generally speaking, Gunslinger is still so approachable in terms of doing like actual end game damage. And well, they kind of threw all that down the toilet, because this modified ability makes it so that when using Run and Gun, your ultimate ability, you gain Berserk, which basically means that you constantly attack, whether you're holding the left click or not, but it increases damage and attack speed, but greatly reduces your movement speed. Oh yeah, because I often would use my ult specifically so that I could run around and stuff. No, this literally, like, look at this. It's ridiculous. You shoot so freaking fast. You do increased damage. Like, it's just, it lasts the same amount of time that the previous, you know, the ult lasts without this. And it just, Gunslinger's right back up to the top again. Like, what the heck, devs? It's kind of the same as the Neo Ninja's abilities as well. But Neo Ninja abilities, I actually felt were more so about balancing Neo Ninja in terms of delves and maybe even possibly fighting Leviathans. You know, where you could end up using your right click to end up generating your shurikens, and the modified ability got you all 3 shurikens really quick. So you could actually do some pretty decent damage and snare enemies continuously. They nerfed that by making it so that Delve's bosses cannot be snared. That is currently on live server on PC. I think it's on console as well. Those of you that have the Bard update, so Nintendo Switch probably doesn't have it. But my point is that this ability, you know, the Neo Ninja and the Gunslinger didn't need a buff, and their modified abilities are some of the best that any of the characters have gotten, which is very, very frustrating. You know, because it's like, all the other characters were trying to compete with these classes, and now suddenly they're just thrown over the top again. But anyways, that does it for all the modified abilities that we got in the game right now. I could probably end up making a video talking about Gunslinger on its own specifically, just because, my god. But yeah, anyways, thanks for watching, gamers. Really appreciate it. Smash like, sub for more, buy the merch you want to support the channel, and have yourselves a wonderfully fantastic day.